Okay, so today we'll be discussing variables and methods. These are very important as far as our game development because you will need to know what each and every one of these are. Because once we dive deep into game development, you may get lost if you don't understand what a variable is and what a method is. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Today I'm going to be demonstrating some code. I decided to kind of stray away from the PowerPoint presentations, and I'm just going to take you guys straight into some code. Okay, so for the purpose of this course, you only need to know these four type of variables. And the four types are an integer, a float, a boolean, and a string. So let's go over real quick what a variable is. A variable is a allocation in memory or a space in memory that's set to hold a specific value you set it to. And that variable also can have an identifier which you can use to access that variable in memory or the value in memory. For example, we're going to create a integer variable. So we're going to do int, which is an integer variable, and we're going to name it number value, and we're going to set it to 22. So what we just done here, we just created a new integer and we labeled the identifier as number value, so we can go back and access it later. And we set the actual value of the variable in memory to 22. So now we have a variable and we can use it in our program. The next variable you need to know is actually a float. And a float is basically an integer, except it's an integer with more memory, because an integer cannot hold a decimal point because it doesn't have enough space in memory. It only can hold whole numbers. So if we wanted to actually hold a decimal point, or say if we need a number that's really precise or accurate, like to the decimal place, then we need to use a float. So to use a float, we'll go ahead and create one. We just do float, and we're going to name it first float. And we're going to set this float to 27.898, actually to 89789, and you need to include an F at the end. So what happens is that if we need for our game engine, sometimes we may need really precise numbers. So instead of using like an integer where we just use 22, we may need our value to be precise, like almost perfect. So to get it that way, we need to have decimal point that can extend to the infinity. I mean, it can go on forever and ever and ever. As you see, the decimal point can go on forever until it's accurate as possible. So that's that. So the next thing is we need to know what a boolean is, and a boolean is basically a true or false variable. So boolean can either hold true or it can either hold false. And this is very important during our game development too, because we'll use booleans for like options, for gameplay, all type of stuff. Booleans will be very important, and you definitely need to know what a boolean is. So to create a boolean, all you do is just type boolean, and we'll name it first bool for first boolean, and we'll name it true. So as you see here, we just created a boolean variable, and we created the identifier to first bool, and we set the value to true. And we can also set this to false too, but for this video or this course, we'll just do true. And last but not least, you need to know the almighty string. And what a string is basically a sequence. It's basically an allocation in memory that holds a sentence, logical statement, any type of quotations. We could actually just do this, and that would be stored in memory as a string. So to create a string, the first thing we do is declare string, and we name it our string, and we'll set it to our first string. And voila, now we have our first string. We created it, we set the identifier to our string so we can access it later, and we set the value to our first string. So for now, that's all you need to know as far as variables. Those are the most important ones we'll be using in this series. And like I said, if you don't quite understand it like fully, then make sure you use Google. Like Google, integer variable, a float variable, boolean, string. Use Google. It's very important to use that. It can't guide you wrong, and more than likely you'll find the correct answer. So second thing is we don't talk about what can we do with these variables. Well, we can actually display an output to the user telling them the value of our variables. So how do we do that? First thing we do is a system dot out dot print line and we're going to go to string, and now what we're going to do is we're going to set our number is, and we're going to use our variable number value to say what it is. Our number value, and I'm missing something. What am I missing? There you go, static. So yeah, basically what we did is now we have to just change this to static because we initialized it. So in order for us to be able to use it in this sentence, in this statement, we need to set it to static. But just kind of ignore that for right now. What you really want to pay attention to is how we're about to use the number value to display the user what the value of that integer is we set. So let's go ahead and click our project, and we're going to run it just to see what we get. And we're going to write this Java application, and we're going to yes, and bingo, there you are. Our number is 22. So you have 22 there, and then you have our number is, which is there, our number is, and number value, which is equal to 22, and it's going to print out the value. There you go. So you just did your first. If you're following along with me and you're kind of coding with me, it's not, you don't really have to. This is just I'm just showing you guys, explaining what it is. You don't have to download anything right now. Just right now, you just kind of watch and understand and take in everything that's going on. So second thing we can do is we can create methods. And what methods are basically subtasks that you can create to help or to help the project, the class, do its job. For example, if we want to have a method that specifically prints out the number value of our integer, we can actually create that. We can create a void print number. We could do void print number, and then we can simply just copy this, and we could actually move it to our now method, which is here. We have a void method, which means it's not returning anything, and we can actually call it here. We can do print number and call it, and now we have a method that will actually use we have a method that we can now call and call it when we need it to print that number. So if we run it, we'll see we get the same output that we got before. There it is. Our number is 22. But the only difference is now we actually use a subtask to do that specific job, or a method to do that specific job for us. Alright, so that's the basics of methods and variables. If you don't quite understand it yet, like I said, Google is your friend. Feel free to Google anything I've discussed, anything I've said, and you should find your answer and be led in the right direction. So we could also have a method, just for example, we can also have a method that's a static void, and it could say print string. And in this one, we could actually just simply print our string that we have in our variable. We could just simply print that. We could just do system.out.print line, and we could just do we could actually just do our string like this. Of course, we have to set that to private. And we could just do that. We could actually just use that, and it's pretty damn cool. And so now we see there, and if we put it here, we could do print string, and it's going to print our string too. Bang, and there it is. Our number is 22. Our first string, and there it is. So that's the basics of methods and variables. If you, like I said, if you don't understand something, feel free to ask a question, or by all means, kind of guide yourself and use Google. And I'm pretty sure you can find the answer to any of your questions. Have a good day. Bye.